when, and especially how was the first time that you experienced the music of Chopin?
Well, actually, I can't tell you precisely because I don't remember. But the thing is, my mom is not a pianist, but she loves classical music, and she had a collection of CD or LPs at the time. She listened to those recordings of Chopin, of classical piano music a lot at home. And I've got two elder sisters who used to play and take piano lessons at home. So I was kind of surrounded by piano sound since I was born. And somehow I was so attracted by the Chopin music and hearing these CD recordings of my mom. And then I started taking piano lessons at 5. And as soon as I got this ability of reading score, I asked my parents to buy some musics of my favorite pieces by Chopin. So in this way, I discovered more and more of his music. That was the start.
Do you remember what the first piece of Chopin was that you ever played?
The Etude Opus 10, number 3, what they call the Tristesse. It's one of the first pieces I played, but in the middle there's a so hard section that I couldn't play it, but still it was my favorite piece of Chopin. And actually a friend of my mother gave me the score when I played for the first time in public. I was 6 years old, so 1 year after I started taking piano lesson, and she gave me this because she knew that I had such a big passion for piano music, and eventually one day I would need this score to learn, some difficult stuff. But I really wanted to play it, and I believe I had heard the magnificent recording of Maurizio Pollini, and then it gave me such an interest and curiosity. And so I just opened the score and I started to play. But I was so disappointed from the beginning because the number 1 of Etudes starts with the octaves, and you need a big hands, and I couldn't even reach the octaves. So I played with the 2 hands, da 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 da, like this. And but you can't imagine how I was so overjoyed to discover and then play Chopin's music. I believed the ballad of Chopin has a very special place in his compositions or even in the music histories, because Chopin was the guy who named instrumental work ballad for the first time. Ballad was considered vocal music until 1830s, but Chopin did write something called ballad. When you hear it, you can't help but imagining there's a story behind, or you can create some scenery. You can see some visions. And of course, when I studied those ballads, I tried to imagine some kind of story. But the most important thing is to express or speak and send some really important message. So Fantasie Impromptu is one of the most famous pieces by Chopin, but actually it has a mysterious background. So Chopin originally composed it in 1835 and for Baroness Liszt, and she commanded a piece by Chopin, and he wrote this, but Chopin didn't want to publish it, and so people don't know why, but there are some theories that maybe he didn't want to publish it because there are some similarity to a specific piece by Motionless, which calls Impromptu, and it's in E flat major. So compared to C sharp minor, it's different character, but the the left hand is like this, and it goes to the it's quite similar. So maybe that was one of the theory. And also Chopin uses exactly the same motif from the last movement of the Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. So that was the same notations. So that could be the reason for which Chopin didn't want to publish.
Kutaro, maybe you know the story that when Chopin visited Schumann in Leipzig, I guess it was in 1838 or something, that he played a part from his second ballad, and that's why the story that Chopin was influenced by the poems or the ballads of Mickiewicz came to public. And what do you think of this?
Well, it is true that Mickiewicz and Chopin knew each other, and both from Poland, so compatriots. But we don't know if it was really his intention, or if it's true that he wrote ballads after being inspired by the poetry of Mickiewicz. But somehow I can imagine there must have been some kind of connections to it. And although Chopin was quite against to the program music that suggests a story or the scenery, when I play ballads, I cannot help but imagining stories. So I didn't deny to these attitudes, and I did lots of imagination on it. And then in order to make sense within one ballad, how I develop one element to those parts and the climax, and what is happening here and what is happening here, and maybe another person comes in, and actually the first ballad starts quite operatic for me. It starts like a great introduction by orchestra, and comes this solo aria, and so you can imagine lots of things, and I don't think there's just one answer for the approach or the study to the music. Then that was marvelous experience for me.